Hi bowl bakers, I'm Chef Gemma Stafford, and this week on Bigger Bolder Baking, I'm going to show you how to make this lovely traditional apple strudel, perfect for the fall. Here's how to do it. So the first step is to plump up our raisins. So I have some golden raisins here. You can use whatever you like, just regular raisins. Here I have a little bit of rum. I like to use alcohol here because it adds a nice flavor to our strudel. You could also use water if you want to. No problem, or you can use a whiskey, whatever your preference is. I like rum in there. So pour over your alcohol, cover it lightly in cling wrap. So what we're going to do now is microwave it on high for around 30 seconds. So it just takes around 20-30 seconds. The liquid gets really nice and hot, and what's going to happen now is that our raisins are going to soak up that warm liquid. They're going to plump up and they're going to be full of flavor. They're also going to be plump and nice to eat. Now we're going to peel and chop our apples. So in America, when it comes to baking, a lot of my recipes will call for Granny Smith apples because they are sweetened. They hold their shape when they're baked, but they also still will get mushy. This is what you use for things like applesauce and things like that. You know, some apples are firmer and they don't break down as well. Sometimes you feel like they haven't baked at all in your recipes. So when it comes to baking, I use Granny Smith. Once you peel your apples, just chop them into little cubes, you know, around 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch, basically just small cubes. I don't measure them. So a strudel is a traditional Austrian recipe, and even if you're not European, you probably have had it at some stage during your life because it's a really popular worldwide recipe. We have this recipe on the website and it's done really well. People love it. I just thought this was a great time to share this recipe because it's getting colder out, the days are getting shorter, and you want to stay at home wrapped up eating strudel and yummy things. So pop your apples into your bowl. So those are our apples. Now let's add in the other ingredients to make our filling. Here I have some breadcrumbs. You can use dried or fresh breadcrumbs, that's totally fine. The amount is written on the website. I'm using dried there and toasted because I had them homemade in the freezer. You can also use fresh. I have a recipe on my website how you can make your own breadcrumbs, especially this time of year. It's a really, really useful recipe. After the breadcrumbs, let's add in a little bit of sugar just to bring up that sweetness of the apples. Cinnamon for warmth and yumminess. Pinch of salt. You want around a tablespoon of lemon juice in here. A little bit to stop the apples turning color, but it's also kind of to balance out all the flavors. You'll see that a lot in baking. They'll add a little splash of lemon juice to kind of like almost neutralize and like balance out the flavors. Some melted butter. Yummy, yummy, yummy. And then lastly, while I was talking and peeling and chopping, our raisins are now nice and plump. Look at that. They've soaked up all the alcohol and they're full of flavor now also. So I'll go ahead and add those in too. Now I just give this a mix around until it's all combined and coated. So the reason for adding in breadcrumbs here might seem kind of odd, but it's actually not. When apples cook, they release their liquid and the breadcrumbs will soak up that liquid, giving you a nice crisp strudel rather than soggy pastry. So that's why they're in there. They also soak up all the other flavors, make everything super yummy. Lovely. Okay, that's it. That's our filling. That's how simple it is. Let me go grab our phyllo pastry and we can start to assemble this. So here I have phyllo pastry. Do not feel bad at all about buying phyllo pastry. Obviously I do it all the time. I actually need to look into making my own homemade phyllo pastry, but that's for another day. Phyllo, whatever you want to call it, this is it. Buy it in your freezer section. Always it's in your freezer section. Please buy good quality. You can get some really good brands out there. This is relatively inexpensive and it can be used for sweet and savory. Okay, so take out your pack. Now here's what you want to do when working with phyllo pastry. You need to work fast and efficiently. So here's what we're going to do. Phyllo pastry dries out quite quickly. When you're working with phyllo pastry, get a nice clean damp tea towel, lay it over it, and we're going to do one sheet at a time. So take one sheet. So this phyllo pastry is actually quite small sheets. That's okay. I'm going to put 2 sheets side by side overlapping. Now I have the size that I want. Gently brush it with a little bit of melted butter over here. Very gentle. This is a very delicate pastry and it can rip quite easily. If it does, don't worry too much, just keep on going. This butter, when it bakes, will create steam in the middle of the layers and make it really soft. There we go. Sprinkle a little bit of sugar. Then we're going to go again. Another layer. And we are going to repeat the same process. Melted butter and a little sprinkle of sugar. If you're new to working with phyllo pastry, it's really easy to do. Just make sure you don't let it dry out. That's when it becomes incredibly difficult to work with. And don't be afraid of it tearing. There's our butter, sprinkle of sugar. And now just repeat this a few more times until you've done 6 layers. At the very end, don't butter and sugar the last layer. So our pastry is ready. Now let's put our filling along the bottom of the pastry, giving yourself around a 2-inch lip, because we're going to fold that pastry over. So here's what we're going to do. Bring in the sides. We just want to cover over, seal in that filling. Now bring up this part. Here we go. Gently, remember this is a gentle pastry. Roll it over. Don't worry now, you're in control. You got this. Beautiful, lovely. Now I'm very gently going to move this onto my baking tray. I have to say, considering I opened that pack of phyllo pastry, saw that there was small sheets, we managed to make it work. So that's great. So in case you have to deal with that too, there is a solution. Now take that last bit of butter you have in the bowl, brush your strudel, make sure it is seam side down on the tray so it doesn't pop open. Just make sure you're generous with that butter on the pastry. And if you need to melt a little bit more, then do that. Sprinkle that last little bit of sugar also you have from your layers, sprinkle that over. Ready. That was really fast. Okay, lovely. Follow me over to the oven. Bake your strudel at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, 180 degrees Celsius for a full hour. You want it to be golden brown on the outside, but you want those apples to be lovely cooked and soft in the middle. Our timer went off. Our strudel is beautiful golden brown. Look at that. It's lovely and flaky. I can feel it being really light. And there's a little bit of juice on our tray, which came out of the apples, which means our apples are lovely and cooked. I'm gonna let this cool down for a few minutes before I move it onto a platter and serve it up. I like to make the extra effort with this dessert because it's quite elegant. It has this lovely thin layer of pastry and then this warm, fruity, spiced filling in the middle. It really is quite special. To really go all out, I like to serve it with some creme anglaise. It's so comforting, the flavor of the apples, the little bit of spice. The breadcrumbs in there soak up all of this lovely juices. There's plump raisins. There's a tiny, tiny hint of that booze in there, which just adds another level of flavor. And then this crispy pastry on the outside. These are the kind of recipes that we grew up with in Ireland. Simple ingredients, fruit that you would have had to hand, breadcrumbs, cinnamon, all wrapped up in an easy pastry. It's simple, it's understated, but it really is just, it warms your heart and it's absolutely delicious. If you liked this recipe, then stick around. I've got loads more traditional recipes for you to see. Thanks so much for being here as always, and I'll see you back here again next week.